Thank you all for joining us for the second panel today. And thank you to our lovely panelists for joining us as well on this day. So this second panel, we're gonna explore together actually meaningful tech careers and why this is actually an opportunity to attract women as well. So my name is Alice. I'm gonna be your host for today on behalf of FARI. So FARI is a Joint University Institute that is actually here in the center of Brussels as well, that aims at deploying AI, data, but also robotics for the common good. So we work together with public administration, with citizens, with a non-profit as well, to really raise awareness and to really make them think about what do we want to do with technology, what is our link with technology as well. And we are also in this beautiful building as well to be close to the citizen and to really engage with them. So without further ado, so I would like to welcome actually to the floor the speakers for today. So we have Julie. I'm going to start with you. So Julie is a community leader, entrepreneur, and co-founder of Molengeek. She's also the founder of Girleek, a digital training center that empowers women for the job of the future. Welcome.
Thank you.
Then we have Professor Tuba Burchan. Thank you for coming here today. She works as an associate professor and the lead of AI-MS Lab, which is AI, Migration and Society Research Unit at the Department of Sociology at the VUB here in Brussels. Besides, she's also a senior scientist at Kavli Research Center for Ethics, Science and the Public at University of Cambridge. And welcome Connecting Science. Thank you for being here. Then we have Manael, welcome. Manael is Head of Impact and Sustainable Transformation at Humanity Group, which is a consulting company based all over Europe. So as a leader of We Impact, she uses her determination, team spirit, and also entrepreneurial spirit to accelerate the sustainable transformation of companies through 3 performance criteria: people, planets, and profits. Then we have Amandine from Octo Technology. She's currently consulting manager, so at Octo Technology, a tech pioneer in the agile and tech product development in France. Specialized in digital responsibility, she supports organizations wishing to have a social and or environmental impact, hopefully both. She enjoys bridging the gap between business and society by understanding digital from strategy to technique. And last but not least, we have Vanessa here. She's an AI coach at Bcode, which is a social impact-driven digital skills and coding school. So she uses active pedagogy to teach in-demand digital skills to motivate individuals in vulnerable professional situations by helping them and those untapped talents to meet the needs of the job markets. Look at this brilliant panel. Thank you all for being here today. Actually, I would like to start with a little question for you and for the audience as well, because here we're talking about meaningful jobs. And I would like to ask you if you had to name one value that you bring into your work on a daily basis, besides doing your work as well, how do you transmit what makes you actually into work? So what value do you bring into your work? So if you had to name one, I don't know if someone wishes to start.
The first one at the top of my mind is respect.
Respect, thank you.
For me, it would be engagement.
Okay.
Engagement and commitment in everything we do.
For me, that would be impact in order to change lives.
I think I do care.
Yeah.
I think for me it would be compassion.
Okay, thank you. And in the audience, what we would have, Carl?
Accessible, trying to make technologies a bit more approachable.
Inclusion.
Yeah.
Usefulness.
Respect. Respect as well.
Yeah.
What's the question? Just the value of work.
And diversity.
Diversity, yes. I also say inclusion. Maybe on this side, if someone.
Maybe you can repeat the question.
So because today we're going to discuss about a meaningful career, I wanted to know which value do you bring into your work every day? Inclusion. Thank you. Thank you. On that note, actually, I would like to start by asking each of you to share maybe some insight on your career path and maybe highlight also some challenges that you may have faced, and also maybe to link it with the state of play that we face now in the world. So, does anyone wish to start this discussion?
Well, the facts are simple, and we have been tackling this topic earlier this morning, but women today are really underrepresented into the tech world, and this is quite astonishing in a world of tech which claims to be progressive. We do think that today is better than yesterday and less than tomorrow. The thing is that today, 93% of the tech startups are funded by men. They belong to men. And in the tech world, we have only 15% of women. That's just not enough. And in other companies, some of them are telling, yeah, we do reach 30%, but we tend to forget that actually those 30% are also including the
Co-founders?
The co-founders, but I was thinking more about the support teams, the support function like marketing and HR, which are basically really women-oriented professions. So in the tech world right now, it's quite a struggle for a woman to speak up her voice because she's suffering from discrimination, sometimes harassment. I'm thinking about the founder of PayPal in the early 20s. He was in the note leaving that maybe we should erase women's rights. That was just, okay, you're part of the Silicon Valley, guys. Sorry for my language, but still. And you were asking about how did you feel in your own job? I'm not a developer, I'm not a programmer. I work with them every day for nearly 10 years now. I've been for 15 years in the positive impact, social and environmental. And the biggest struggle for me has been to be heard.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow.
And, well, I'm not alone. Just to be heard, because I started as a recruiter, then I was supposed to implement some subsidiaries abroad in other countries of Womenity, implementing the culture, the practice, the process, etc., etc. And one day I came to my founder saying, hey, we want to change the world of working. This is our vision. First, in the world of working, there are not only private companies, there are also NGOs. And they're part of it. They need to be empowered to do so, even if they don't have the means to pay Womenity for the service we are offering. And secondly, if we want to change the world of working, that's good, but profit is not the only performance criterion on which we can rely. Of course, we need it. I'm not against it. Sorry for those who are, but I'm not against profits. We need it to pay salaries. But I will be happy the day when we will have 3 performance criteria: profit, people, planet. So to make it short, the struggle was to be heard, to have also the respect from the CIOs I was meeting. Still today, when I'm in a meeting with some CIOs, they are quite surprised to see a young blonde woman talking about sustainability in tech. And also, I find it hard to, through mail, for example, I will tend to ask my partner. I'm co-founder also of an application which is called Impact Carbon. It calculates the navigation of your consumption in CO2 emissions. And each time I send a mail, okay, I know it's read, but we have more answers from the investors and
Yeah.
the other ones when he's actually sending the mail, whereas the mail is exactly the same. So that's the struggle I can see in my professional life right now.
Thank you for sharing. Julie, would you like to go first?
Yes, on the other side, for the women who would like to develop their IT skills, we are facing big challenge. They are facing big challenges. Trainings are not accessible at all. It's really complicated for women, but to struggle between their work experience and private life, and to do the balance of that is really complicated for them. And we see most of the trainings, are face-to-face trainings from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you've got children, it's complicated. The last Nobel Prize of Economy, she was working about that. She was writing about that, the fact that as soon as you start to have a family life, it's really complicated. You've got a break. And then and then at Görlich, for instance, we are working with women who are retraining. And each time it's the same thing, because we are only 18% of IT experts in Belgium. And so maybe they didn't do the STEM studies, but they come back to tech. And we see that there is a before ChatGPT and after ChatGPT. And AI are impacting more women because they are more in administration works. So they have to retrain. And as soon as they understand that, but they don't know how to do, because here in Brussels you need to be unemployed, and it's again physical trainings on the ground. And then if you want to do like online, it can be very expensive, or they don't know where to go, or they can do that during the night, and it's during the evening. It's long, it's complicated, it's 3 times per week. So there is a real challenge with the accessibility of trainings here in Belgium, at least.
Yeah. Thank you. Maybe Vanessa.
It's great that you bring it up because, right, part of my job is actually to train job seekers to enter the tech market. And as it combines beautifully both your answers, because we find in our trainings the highest percentage of women is 30%. In my current class, about 25 learners, I have 5 women, about 20%. And there's this push to include women in tech, we want numbers, but first there's no guarantee of safety most of the time in those environments. There's not guarantee of access. And there's a really big challenge around motherhood, I think. I'm a person who doesn't have children, but many of my learners do. What does that look like is that there are gaps on the CV. That you're entering a market that looks very different from when you were last employed. That if you come to our trainings, indeed, we are sponsored by the job-seeking agencies in Belgium, but that means it needs to be a full-time 9-to-5 training. Thankfully, we are a hybrid model, so we try to do 2 days on campus or 3 days on campus and some remote. But I found that women are incredibly motivated. Not only motivated to pursue career in tech, but figure ways to balance it all. And it's super challenging because the expectation for women and men in balancing it all is very different, right? So I have learners, who drop their baby at the crash, but then they get called, hey, my baby is sick, right? And who has to then stop the training, go to get them? Who feels the pressure of having to say to a manager, to me, even though I'm a woman, to say, hey, actually, I can't make it today because this thing in my life takes priority. But the expectation is that all these things are happening in women's life and they still need to show up to the workplace as if they're not, and produce and be as productive as if they are not. So I think it's a very big challenge to acknowledge that, because once you acknowledge that, then you can build supportive structures. And I suspect we're gonna hear the same things, but as a person, so my background is in mathematics. Like a proper, if you would say, tech person. And I see this in every single discipline I've been interacting with. So it's not something about tech, right? It's a bigger picture, but it's very predominant in tech because of tech culture. STEM culture, right? You need to be this type of smart. You need to do these things this way or you're not smart enough.
And you need to do the STEM studies, or otherwise
Yes.
it's complicated.
Yes, yes, so I think it's a bigger problem of perception. You know, I'm perceived as very nerdy. I think that can work to my advantage in certain situations, right? I fit what some people would say a math person should look like, or a STEM person should look like. But it's really my belief that, you know, there's not one size that fits all. And while we're working for those accessibility constraints that women face, then, you know, it's good to create structures, but also be flexible, because not every woman is in the same situation. But yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to be heard when you're the only one in a room, right? Who would feel inclined to speak up?
That's a good point. All the women are all different. It's not an homogeneous group of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Maybe Tsuda, you
Yeah.
can share your
I
experience
think,
from
it's so
research.
interesting because, like, although I'm doing a lot of work on AI, but part of my work is also about the challenges of numerous people, especially ones to labor market. So I think it fits very well. But I would like to talk a bit about my experience in a way that it is not enough even when you are in the labor market. And a lot of people say, oh, you are the professor, oh, cool, oh, yeah. But it doesn't really count, because I have to say that I'm a mathematician, I studied math and stats, so I think I can say that I am from STEM, but just because I chose to work in social sciences, because I'm working on ethical and social responsible use of AI, I belong nowhere, because social scientists, you know, like, you do that thing, and then all these tech guys, they said, yeah, but, you know, you abandoned, so you do abandon, so, I mean, I think being heard on what I experience a lot is that I feel like we've been accessorized. Like, I'm invited to many places, but being heard doesn't mean that being there and talking, because you might come up with really little, microaggressions. Have you heard of Jupyter Notebook? You know, kind of stuff. So, because they do assume that even if you claim to be an expert in a thing, you need to prove it triple times, so that, you know, you need to convince people. I think it's extremely tiring, but I think I would call it also based on more the challenge of intersectionality, what we are talking about. I'm a woman of migrant origin, so the compliments are, oh, you did well. Really, like, it's, or when you stand up, because we have to stand up, we have to talk, then you are dominant, you are blunt, because they always compare. I do travel a lot, and they say, oh, but who takes care of your children? I said, they have a father. And then it is again an attribution to my husband, because he is, but it never happens to men. So they are never questioned about how they balance things, or then I am the one who sacrifices, you know, like, I give up. So I think the work-life balance is not only about how much time you do, you are attributed to specific values that you are not, I wouldn't say good enough, but they expect you to do, and this is your playground, play there.
And stay there.
Yes, and stay there. And I think we need, this intersectionality, also disciplinarity, gender, it could be social background. And I do think that, you know, like, we should talk more, because otherwise men will not. They're not going to talk about this.
And if I can just come back on your points about dominance and arrogance, a man who wants to conquer the world, he's ambitious.
Yeah.
A woman
Yes.
who wants to conquer the world, she's arrogant.
Yeah.
But as a name, that's a problem.
And just as a name, it's a socialist problem of society, which is the double standard.
Yep.
It's something which has been very well documented in terms of behavior, ambitious.
And would you like to share as well?
Yeah, thank you, because indeed I absolutely agree with what your testimony is. Of course, I experienced similar things, and I struggle with my legitimacy within the tech sector, because I'm not an engineer. I start my career as a life science teacher. Then I have a lot of questions between me, my purpose, and the society, and I was always driving to have an impact on society. But I love science as well, so it was the first big question. Then after I joined the tech company, accompanying how can I say, health tech, health and health industry, health tech through data. And in fact, all my experience and yours also can be classified in 3 levels of issue: the societal level, the organizational level, and also the individual level. In fact, we are women and we are still living with the legacy of a patriarchal society where valued qualities, so-called feminine versus so-called masculine, undervaluated. And all of this blocked the access to girls to science, for example. And this has an impact to our organization, how our organization has been organized today. And this has an impact to our internal barrier. And there is also a retraction loop to the south side. So we need to break this system imperatively, because there is a lot of situations which feed each of these levels. So it's a system. It's a very tricky system for us as a woman and as a gender in general. And I realized also that, of course, as many of us, I have been driven by care energy, which has been linked to women, and which there is a lack of visibility and a lack of validation of the care. But in fact, this is mandatory today to design good product for good and for a good impact. The care energy, I would not say feminine energy, please, because it's not essential. It's a care, it's empathy, it's quality of empathy, listening, etc., etc. This energy has been undervalued, but due to the society, due to the patriarchal society, which has been led women to this function and underpaid as a consequence.
Back an example about that, because we are designing trainings very hybrid, so it's not only face-to-face meetings plus e-learning, but it's also part-time internship in companies. So this is really to push the. I didn't do the STEM studies, but I'm good enough to do it because I can see eyes. And then at the end you've got certification. So by doing that, it's a lot of work for us, because we have to look for partners, for companies who want to do that, to welcome a trainee. But it's working. You know, at the end of the day, they are hired because the companies, they discover them and they see they can do the job. So, but the idea is like to have. But the using of hybrid methodology, it's really a plus. And if they've got like an issue with the kids, obviously they're welcome with the kids. I'm the babysitter, I'm here. I said that to them. It's kid friendly and to do everything possible. So it's small. It's a small training center, but at least all the women who are passing through Girl League, at least they got a job and they know I'm here for them. You know.
Yeah.
And I will add, because our business model is a bit similar, right? Our path is to train you and land you in an internship or a job, right? Because we want to show companies that you're capable, but also show yourself that you're capable. And it's an issue of access a lot of the time, especially for migrant women, which is the people that I see a lot in our trainings, right? They might not be fluent completely in Dutch or French, but these are people who are doing a 9-to-5 training and then going for 6 to 9 Dutch or French, right? They're incredibly motivating and doing a lot to just get through the door. And I think once they're through the door, right, they can show their skills, and I believe they are skilled, they are qualified, they are just as capable. But, you know, if you don't account for those extra hurdles, you have people believing that they are not capable because of their own skills, their own self, not the structural societal barriers or organizational barriers. And I think that's quite challenging to deal with women, because we live in a patriarchal society and we're trained to think this way and we're encouraged to think this way to perpetuate the system. But then how do we break that? Well, it starts small, right? But it's quite challenging.
But it's maybe your role as well as a training center to do that, to be the little sparkle, to enter with the companies, to get to make sure that internship is good enough, and then
to open the door.
I ask the same question to women. as men, because most of the time women are more challenged on their ambition, on their eagerness to take risk, etc., etc. These are not questions women are asked most of the time in the meetings. Right?
And yet, I mean, the situation we're in today, it has not always been the case. That has been introduced, I think, nicely by the previous panel as well. And Manel, I think it's a point that we could discuss as well. It's like if we look back like 100 years ago when the software developers, they were mainly women, right?
Yeah, indeed, the hardware, the machine learning, not the machine learning, but the computer, the phone, etc. It was really an engineer work. Engineer means science, and science was meaning men. Okay, software was much more open to women at that time because it was not appealing as a job. It was less paid. You didn't need to have any educational background to do so. So we tend to forget today that basically software was made by women. And maybe we can remind that Ada Lovelace, she's been actually the first woman launching the first program, actually the conditional loop. We not very often hear about her, but still. And if you come to the to now, right now, as soon as the educational field understood that software might be an interesting field, they created programs. The men came, they've been trained, they have been having diplomas, and after that they came back to a company. When they arrived at the company, they had the diploma, so they became the managers of these women who were there far before them. They became the managers, and then who they recruited? All the men who had the diplomas, etc. And that's how actually women have been pushed out of the way, whereas they were here. And to me, the conclusion is that the dominant group goes where the power is.
Yes, of course, absolutely.
And I think to address that, it is also important to think several steps ahead, or because it starts at daycare, at a primary school, because these kids are already learn about gendered occupations. So I don't know if you've seen, there was a little experiment. They asked kids in primary school, can you draw an astronaut? Can you draw a scientist? And then they brought in the opposite gender that kids were. I think it is important to, when we talk about role models, most of the time we assume that a role model in a conference, in a company, but I think even in daily life, you know, like being there and being proud of what you are doing can really inspire people. And education system is unfortunately patriarchal as well. So we do, because they do see a lot of women teachers in the primary, secondary. They go to university. I mean, I'm teaching in social sciences. 98%, okay, I exaggerated, 95% of my students are female. When you look at the faculty in social sciences, we are very little. In the world, the best faculty ratio for female professors are 30%, and VUB is proud of it. But normally it is 15%. So what happens to those girls? Where do they go? It is the same. Now we have more girls in engineering and tech, but they don't appear, you know, they disappear somehow. So I think it is important to think the systematic barriers and how we can really address, because if we assume that elephant is in the room and nobody talks about it,
we can't do anything.
No, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, it's also a question, like you mentioned, of representation.
Yes.
Yeah, and maybe this is something that you could share as well, like through your career, where there's we mentioned the role models, or were you books, or what really triggered, you know, something in you through your career, or someone actually.
And maybe I can start because it segues from what she said, is that it starts young. When I was a kid, I wasn't particularly good at math, or what you would call math, right? But I had a 4th grade teacher, and I always mention her, because after school, while my parents were waiting to be picked up, that was the classroom I stayed, right? And she made math a safe space for me to play. And I think that safe space was, you know, the starting point, or what led me to a math career, right? Because middle school, high school, most of my teachers maybe were male. In the university as well, in grad school as well, everywhere in the pipeline as well. But, you know, knowing and meeting other women who were in those spaces was incredibly helpful. I think I'm very lucky that I've had great women role models great male allies, people who have been in my corner, and that takes a lot of luck. I think when you know the percentages are 50%, right? So I'm very lucky that way, but. Yeah, it makes a world of difference. And not only that, maybe thinking about the last panel is being with people who are feminists, tech feminists. You know, my partner is my biggest, you know, promoter, ally. You know, he's the biggest promoter of women empowering women. So, you know, surrounding yourself with people who believe in that is extremely powerful. Yeah.
For me, I grew up in Africa, in Gabon, Central African Republic, and Burkina Faso. And my mother, at the same time, they were divorced, my parents, and she was running a theater in Paris. So I grew up like in two different fields. My dad was a statistician, so there was mathematics and so on. And then when I went to university, I did a master's degree in finance to become a trader, so lots of mathematics again. And then I discovered in 2002 by new technologies because I had my first really laptop computers, and so I started to code. And coding, that was very interesting because there was a mix between these two worlds, like creativity, but at the same time you had to be, you know, I don't know how to say that, you need to write correctly, otherwise it's not working. And then because of my background in Africa, I was always impressed with what was going on there. Women over there, it's amazing. They all have a smartphone. They're all using cryptos to pay with QR code. They don't know, some of them don't know how to read. But they are still using like their phones in order to do businesses and to empower themselves. And it's interesting to see that it's fascinating for me because here sometimes in Brussels especially, women we are working with, they don't know really how to speak French, it's complicated, and they don't have laptops. So all the designs of the trainings at Girl League, it's an inspiration from the women in Africa who are using in a very creative way new technologies.
Oh, maybe I can also add. It's going to be a bit cliche, but I think it starts at very early ages, as we said. But for me, I mean, my dad was a mathematician. And he was a very keen guy. I'm coming from a very competitive country. Like, you have to get exams to get to a better school each time. So I haven't, you know, like until 18, I really didn't have a weekend. I had to study because it's so competitive. And my dad used to tell me when I was very early, he just said, you have to love it. You know, so he told me that if you don't love things, you're not going to succeed. So if you don't love, find something that you love. I think it really inspired me in a way because I was so into math. So I said, yeah, I like it. And I also have to say that personality is very important. It's because some people work with, yes, you can do it. Some people say, I mean, for me, I really like to be challenged. If someone tells me, yeah, you can't do it, you know, I get more ambitious, but it doesn't work for everyone. So I think the best way is to find your way, like which motivates you, which makes you progress. But in general, I think people who support you can be a factor, or people who overlook can also be a factor to work towards what you want to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes. For me, there was a lot of source of inspiration. When I was a teenager, loving science, etc., I don't have any role model, in fact. And I struggled with myself. Do I need to do something with math, with physics, etc.? I would love to be an astrophysician at this time, but I gave up because of the potential, the risk to fail, etc., etc. So I miss a role model in order to go ahead. But anyway, I have found my way by life science, by teaching, because that could bridge the gap between science and society. It was very important for me. And I think when I moved to tech sector, in fact, my inspiration comes from my former students, I think. Because I accompany them to their own way, and I say to myself, okay, but why do I have reserved this job for me, for my own career? So I struggled with myself, discussing with myself, with my partner. The partner is important because when I have changed my partner, and then my career is better. I don't know. So thank you, my partner. If you see And in fact, I moved to tech industries, and I worked a lot, harder and harder, but never grew up in my company. Because I don't understand why. And of course, I was sick at one time, and my doctor said, "Okay, but you are not crazy, you are not something. You are only boring in your company, and you are blocked. So you need to do something else." So the second is my doctors, which encourage me. You are capable. You are able to do better. I believe in you, but take care of you first.
Yes.
And look after your alignment, congruence, etc. Then, okay, so and furthermore, because you are boring, no, you are bored, sorry, not being boring. You are bored, you're bored in your job, learn. And find something interesting for you to
Website? No, of course not, because you're not in the network. And that's where networking becomes so important, but not only thinking about how to expand within your network, but how do we reach the people who are not connected to the grid, let's say, right? And that is a very big challenge. Because indeed, especially with OpenAI, ChatGPT, all these technologies is very scary to people. We know AI is changing the workforce. We know it. The question I always get is then, what do we do? Are our trainings still bad? Are we gonna be replaced by the AI overlords in the future? But I think, the human factor is very important. But then that means that if we know this change is coming, which will come because innovation goes way too fast, we need to prepare the people to transition. So any way we can reskill people, make it so they know what to do, what is the next step, how not to become quote unquote obsolete, right? Keep growing and support them in practical ways to do so. Then that is the only way I see a path forward. Say you have all the isms, right? But age is a big one that we see, right? If you have a person who's been working with Excel for the last 50 years or 20 years, and you say, hey, now use this, that's not gonna work, right? Change is difficult. No matter what it is, change is difficult. But if we all commit to really investing in people, honestly, I think that's it. Being able to invest in people, then you say, it's not, hey, go learn this. It's like, what do you need to be able to learn this? And then support that. Maybe it's, right, the skill sharing. Maybe it's a one-shot conversation, but at the end of the day, tech is for people, or for me, it should be for people, by people, and it should really advance our goals as individuals and as a society. So we can't leave people behind. And I think women are being left behind. And maybe one last thing, because it's very important, I don't want to forget. I wanted to just maybe highlight again male allyship. But it's not only male allyship, it's allyship in general. All of us have privilege in some way or another. So recognizing where do you have privilege is first step. So then when the moment comes, you can be the one to step in. I'm a woman in tech, right? I have a PhD in math. My privilege is not the same as someone who's entering from another field. Okay, so we can see there's challenges in women, but someone who doesn't have my degrees or is viewed in the way I'm viewed in society, right? It's a different privilege. So I feel like it's my responsibility to be here and talk about this because I have the opportunity to do so. But that means that males and men in the tech workplace are in, I wouldn't say you have the responsibility. I mean, that's a personal choice according to your values. But I want you to realize that you're in a unique position to make a big difference with much less risk than a woman that's in the same room as you. And as a person who's been the only woman or one of two women and seen all sorts of things in terms of allyship, I want to provide one example. I used to work in a team that we were two women in the team. Personalities matter. I'm pretty agreeable. I avoid conflict at all costs. That's my personality. I had another colleague, very direct, very dominant, right? That perception or the interaction, even though we would say the same things, not perceived the same by the rest. Add a male colleague, right? Not the same. We could be saying the exact same thing and it wouldn't be perceived the same. So what we did end up doing, because this person was someone that we felt understood our plight in a sense, anytime we had an important idea, we just told them, you say it in the meeting. We're not going to say it because it's pointless. You say it. And of course, that's not as good as being heard, but maybe it's just an acknowledgement that that's how it works, right? And, you know, if you're a man and you're watching this, or if you're in a position of privilege, think about those things in the next meeting. Just, you know, it takes a lot more effort, brain-wise, but that means that you're in a position that you can really use your power. And that can be very empowering for you too. So keep that in mind. It takes a bit of effort, but next time maybe you notice there's one person, it could be a woman, or one person that does not look like the rest, in any sense. Think about, okay, I'm in a privileged position. Maybe how can I be, right, facilitate? It's like, oh, excuse me, she was talking. Can you proceed? You know, it doesn't have to be the big fights also. It's really those little things that make a difference.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And I would like actually now to open the questions to the floor here. So do we have any questions to our speakers? And if so, I would like you to first introduce yourself and then Christian submit your question.
A selfish question to Ben and Vanessa.
Yeah.
What do you suggest for like a research institute? We are just a little bit down below. Yeah, but what do you suggest? Because it's of course, like a lot of you said, unequal in the structure of the universities themselves. So when you're a small structure within it, what would you suggest? First steps doing a good job.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I've been asking myself the same thing. You know, at BICO we also offer other trainings for companies and stuff. And the other day I went to my manager. I was like, we need to do this training. We need to do a new workshop that we call Male Allyship in the Tech Workforce. But I don't want to give it because I'm not a man. You should give it because you're a man. But then we had an interesting discussion because who should lead the conversation, right? Of course, it's going to be very challenging for you to relate to our experience because you don't have access to that experience. But I think the fact that you're asking, that's already a great step. I think definitely having the conversation with the other male colleagues is quite nice, saying, hey, I went to this conference, right? And they talked about this. What about if over lunch we discuss ways that we see ourselves supporting women in our team? If you feel comfortable talking to the woman, hey, because again, support might look different, also different personality types. Hey, like I would want to support you, or notice this in this meeting. Just offering and building your data from there, because it is challenging. And in the previous session, someone mentioned too that it's kind of eye-opening. And the question I get from men a lot of time is like, but what do I do? I want something practical to do. But it's hard to do the big things. I think start small and then be open to feedback. When a colleague says, hey, this was not okay, listen. I think the hard part, if you listen already, you're winning there, I think. Because I found that when I've pointed out things to men, say, no, that you're making a big deal out of it. No, it wasn't like that. You know, and I think even just that, just making that a personal challenge, I think could be really good. So thanks for asking.
Something that can help, if I may also, is to just launch a simple program, like provide a training about what is sexist and sexual harassment, because harassment is not about touching someone, you can just hear something at the office all day long, or even once a week. So just raising awareness about what is sexist, what is sexual, what's the definition, and legally speaking, what does it mean when you're doing it within your company or within the streets. And then to empower the employees in raising the hand. For example, just having a mail address on which a mail can be sent saying, I've seen this, or I've undergone this, and define a process explaining how you will tackle the problem. You don't need to go to the court each time something is happening, but at least you will create a safe place for people raise the hand and say, okay, this happened, how do we deal with that? And even for men, I had dozens of developers within Womanity. They came to me saying, I didn't know. I'm sorry, I didn't know. It was just a joke. And I understand those joke because we all laugh at it because we are used to it. But when you are one woman, imagine you have a team of 10 people. 8 people are men and are okay with that. I mean, they feel ashamed that they are only one woman, but still the 8 are okay. But you've got another one, he's harassing all day long. If him plus 1 or 2 of the 8s are harassing even once a month, it means that 5 out of 5 days, this woman is having a sexist or sexual habit. Whether. So that's the reason why also they leave the team. Once they knock at the door with the diploma, with the experience, etc., they don't stay in the environment because they're like, okay, you don't want me, I will go.
I would like to add something regarding the community of developers and women developers. I recently learned that the sexism for this community is not only between the relation, day-to-day relation, but within the code. Within writing the code. Some developers shared me recently that code has been stolen and men reappropriate code written by women, and it's scandalous. And sometimes they modified code written by women without writing anything or without consent. So there's a lot of invisible sexism within the developers community for women, which is not a sexism we can notice on a day-to-day basis. It's something which is more insidious for this community. So we need to be very vigilant and be cautious with this woman in particular. And it's because women who start a career as developers can stop promptly after several years because of this practice, and it's invisible.
But actually, the average career of a woman, the duration, is 8 years for women in tech. And as soon as you start your family life, it's complicated, like to do the balance. So.
And if I may add something about the system, that it's institutional level. I think one thing that I would definitely recommend is to work on the gender equality plan. It is obligatory now, but in many cases it's just a piece of paper with some copy-pasted text, but it is really important because if you have a solid one, you can follow it up. I think following up is very important, not like, okay, we gave a lecture or a seminar, okay, now everyone got it, but I think it's really important to see the impact if it worked. So, like this impact analysis or assessment will be good. And secondly, I think self-reflection is very important. A lot of institutes and organizations like to be on LinkedIn wherever, we have that many women, we are this, we are in that event. But when you look at it, look at the FARI. I mean, how many professors you have on your advisory board. So I think it's really like, why not? Like, didn't they accept? Aren't there any? If there are not any, what can FARI do for it? I mean, not only for your board, aren't there enough professors or people from companies? Or it might be like when we talk about this systematic understanding and improvement, like for the gender equality plan or diversity plan, a lot of SMEs will need it and they have no clue what it is, how to address it. And today we talked a lot about women, but there is a huge stereotype around gender in general. Look at Netflix movies, all the coders are lesbian women, if they're women. Yeah. And there is nothing wrong with it, but it is really like as if a heterosexual woman cannot be a coder, like they're really putting a lot of these subliminal links in there, so they are still trying to attach some prejudice. So I think that's not the case in the world, we do know, but maybe self-reflection is good, and I do believe that in organizations and institutes, we talked a lot about bottom-up, but I think we also need to educate high-level people because they assume they never go to the seminars, training, so these are the decision makers, but in fact, those are the guys who are the gatekeepers in many cases. So I think it's important to let it infuse till the top.
If I can add one more thing, because it's just like it's been a long road, I've been in many organizations for diversity, and we always plan event, we plan workshop, and who shows up? The woman.
Yeah.
Who shows up? The woman. And it's been a personal gripe to me because the women tend to know who needs to be there is also the men. Because the same way we say, okay, if you don't consider women, you're missing 50% of the population.
Yes.
If you consider men, it's the flip side, right? If we don't bring the rest 50% of men to the conversation of diversity and inclusion, we're not gonna advance the same way. So I think it's very important to also show up to events like this, right? Listen and really keep an open mind, because I feel like my partner always says this, which I think is very powerful. People succeed if they're put in a position to succeed, right? That's the same for everyone. So women will succeed in the job market if they're given the tools they need to succeed. Men will succeed in being allies to women if they're given the tools to succeed. It won't happen just willy-nilly. It has to be kind of a conscious choice. It has to be proactive. It has to be structural with follow-up, right? But it's challenging. It's challenging to know what's good for you.
May I add one more thing? I think it is also, I think we have to acknowledge that there is nothing wrong with being women or feminine. It doesn't contradict with professionality. I do see it a lot, like if in your office you have a flower, a picture of your kids, whatever, immediately, you are put in a box. I said, kind of stuff, but you don't. But when you have a photo at a male's desk, he's a family man. But you are never. So I think that's why, I don't mean that we have to the other way. I think it's okay to make a statement. Yes, I'm a mother. Yes, I'm a woman, and I'm as good as you. And I think that's how, but this empowerment, or listen, we have to advocate for ourselves. But you can't advocate to people who already support you. So we need the others on board too, so that we can make a change.
Thank you. And on that word, actually, I would like to thank you all for joining us today, here in the audience and online. And I suggest actually that we pursue that fantastic discussion as well through lunch. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
Merci à vous.